She cheated, her parents helped, and they tried to take everything, $183K, my home and my trust. But they didn't know I had the deed, the proof, and a plan to make them all pay before midnight. Here's the brutal truth. I gave Savannah my heart and my fortune, and she handed them both to her family with a smile that still haunts me. My name's Ethan Reynolds, 38, software architect, Austin, Texas. I met her 3 years ago, back when I thought life was finally snapping into place. She was a marketing pro with a quick wit and a glow that could blind you to the knife she was sharpening. I didn't see it then. I saw a future, our future, and I dove in headfirst, believing every word she fed me. It started so damn well. Savannah was electric, the kind of person who made you feel like you'd won something just by being near her. I was happy, stable job, nice place, a woman I'd have moved mountains for. But happiness is a lousy shield. I didn't notice how her charm came with strings, how her parents, Cliff and Lynn, were waiting in the wings, ready to pull them. They got me good, all three of them. A crumbling Victorian house, a pile of debt, and a sob story I swallowed whole. I cashed out my savings, handed over my security, thinking I was the hero. Turns out, I was the fool. Betrayal doesn't always roar. Mine slipped in on tiptoes, whispering promises, while it picked my pockets. Savannah played the lead, but her folks were the real directors. Cliff with his salesman grin, Lynn with her teary-eyed guilt trips. They took everything, $183,000, my trust, my sleep. I still wake up at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I missed it. Was it her hesitation when she talked about them? Cliff's too firm grip when we shook hands? Or was I just too eager to believe in something that never existed? I keep asking myself where it went wrong, replaying every conversation, every glance. The signs were there, faint but real, and I ignored them because I wanted us to work. I wanted her to be real. Now I'm left with the pieces, shattered plans, an empty bank account, and a quiet that presses down like a weight. This isn't about getting even, though I've pictured it more times than I'll admit. It's about what happens after the fall, when you're standing in the rubble of your own stupidity, trying to figure out who you are without the lies you bought into. I lost more than money to Savannah and her family. They took my faith in people, my sense of safety. But I'm still breathing, still here, and that's something. This story starts with me picking through the mess they left behind, not because I want pity, but because I need to understand it. How did I let them in? How did I not see? And most of all, how do I climb out of this hole they dug for me? That's where I'm at, 38, betrayed, and starting over. Let's see what's next. 3 years ago, I walked into a tech networking event at a sleek downtown Austin hotel, expecting nothing more than stale coffee and small talk. I was 35 then, comfortable in my career but restless in a way I couldn't name. The room buzzed with ambitious coders and startup hopefuls, all pitching ideas under dim chandeliers. I was nursing a beer, half listening to some guy drone on about blockchain, when she caught my eye, Savannah. She stood across the room, laughing with a small crowd, her auburn hair catching the light like a flare. She wore a navy blazer over a white blouse, sharp but effortless, and when she glanced my way, her smile hit me like a jolt. I don't remember crossing the room, but suddenly I was there, introducing myself. Ethan Reynolds, I said, sticking out my hand. She took it, her grip firm, her green eyes locking onto mine. Savannah Tate, you look like you're hiding from the crypto guy. Her voice had a playful edge and I laughed. Actually laughed, not the polite chuckle I'd been faking all night. We clicked instantly. She was a marketing strategist, she told me, working for a firm that branded tech company. I told her about my job, building software systems, solving problems with code, and she leaned in, genuinely curious, asking questions that showed she got it. That night stretched into hours. We ditched the event for a quiet bar nearby, trading stories over whiskey and fries. She talked about growing up in San Antonio, her dad's car dealership, her mom's knack for turning every holiday into a tearjerker. I told her about my quieter roots, Austin born and raised, parents gone too soon, just me and my brother drifting apart over the years. She had this way of listening, head tilted, eyes soft, that made me feel seen. Then she let her guard down, admitting she'd always felt pressure to hold her family together. They're a mess sometimes, she said, swirling her drink, but they're mine. I admired that, her loyalty, her heart. Days turned into weeks, and we were inseparable. Coffee runs became dates, late-night texts became calls that lasted until dawn. We bonded over the big stuff, wanting a family someday, chasing dreams that didn't stop at a paycheck, loving fiercely even when it hurt. She'd tease me about my terrible cooking, then whip up something amazing in my kitchen, humming. It was easy, natural, like we'd been waiting for each other. A month in, she brought me to meet her parents. We drove to San Antonio, her hand resting on mine as the city faded into suburbs. Their house was a faded Victorian on a quiet street. Peeling paint, sagging porch, a relic of better days. Cliff answered the door, a wiry guy in his 60s with a salesman's grin and a handshake that lingered. "Well, well, the man who's stolen my girl's heart," he said, clapping my shoulder. Lynn was next, a petite woman with graying curls and eyes that welled up the second she hugged me. "Oh, Ethan, we've heard so much," she gushed, her voice trembling like she might cry. They were warm, welcoming, a little over the top. Cliff with his loud stories, Lynn with her dramatic sighs. But I liked them. They felt like family already. Savannah squeezed my arm as we sat on their worn couch, her parents beaming at us. "See," she whispered, "they adore you." I believed her. I wanted to. That night, driving back to Austin, I felt something shift. Of course, it wasn't just dating anymore, it was bigger. I saw a life with her. With them, a messy, loud, loving package deal. I was falling, hard and fast, and I didn't care where I landed. She was worth it, at least, that's what I told myself. The Victorian house in San Antonio became a regular stop for us after that first visit. It was a 2-hour drive from Austin, but Savannah insisted we go every couple of weeks. "They need us," she'd say, her voice soft but firm, and I'd nod, happy to be the us she leaned on. The place stuck with me, not for its charm, but for how it seemed to sag under its own weight. The wraparound porch tilted, the shutters hung crooked, and the faded blue paint flaked off in strips. Inside, it smelled of old wood and mothballs, cluttered with mismatched furniture and framed photos yellowing at the edges. Cliff and Lynn treated it like a shrine, though, always talking about the memories it held. It was on our third visit that the trap started to take shape. We were sitting in their cramped living room, a tray of iced tea sweating on the coffee table, when Lynn's face crumpled. "I don't know how to say this, Ethan," she began, dabbing her eyes with a tissue she'd pulled from her sleeve. "This house? It's everything to us. Cliff built his life here, raised Savannah here. But we're in trouble." Her voice broke, and she looked at Cliff, who leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his usual grin replaced by a grim line. "Truth is, son," Cliff said, "we're drowning. Dealership went under years back and we've been scraping by. Now, the bank's breathing down our necks. $183,000 in debt. They'll take the house if we don't pay up." He shook his head, like he couldn't believe it himself. Savannah reached for my hand, her fingers cold. "I've been helping as much as I can," she said quietly. "It's not enough." I sat there, stunned, the numbers rattling in my head. $183,000. It was a gut punch, but Lynn's tears were what got me. She launched into a story about Savannah's first steps on that creaky staircase, Cliff proposing on the porch, every word dripping with nostalgia. "I can't lose it," she whispered. "It's all we have left." Savannah squeezed my hand tighter, her eyes pleading. "Even I hate asking, but could you help them? Just a little?" I didn't answer right away. My mind raced. Retirement savings, investments, the nest egg I'd built over a decade of late nights coding. It wasn't pocket change they were asking for, it was everything. But then I looked at Savannah, her face tense with worry, and I thought about the future we talked about. Family, stability, roots. This was her family. If I loved her, didn't that mean stepping up? "Let me think about it," I said finally, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. Over the next week, Savannah kept the pressure gentle but constant. She'd mention the house in passing. "Mom cried again today," or slip into bed beside me murmuring, "You're the only one who can fix this." Cliff called once, his tone casual but edged with desperation. "You're a good man, Ethan. We'd owe you big." Lynn sent a handwritten note, 2 pages of shaky cursive about keeping the family together. It wore me down, piece by piece, until I couldn't tell if I was helping out of love or guilt. By the time we sat down with them again, I'd made up my mind. The living room was the same, stuffy, cluttered, the air thick with expectation. Lynn clutched Savannah's arm, Cliff leaned back in his chair, and I laid it out. "I can cover the debt," I said, watching their faces light up. "But we do this right. Legally. The house goes in my name until you're back on your feet." Cliff nodded like it was no big deal. "Whatever you need, son." Savannah kissed my cheek, whispering, "Thank you." Lynn sobbed into her tissue, calling me a blessing. I left that day feeling lighter, like I'd done something noble. Savannah's smile in the car, her hand on my thigh, it all felt worth it. I didn't see the trap closing around me. I didn't realize I just handed them the keys to my life, not theirs. To me, it was an investment in us. To them, it was something else entirely. The decision to bail out Savannah's parents wasn't one I took lightly, but once I committed, I moved fast. I sat in my Austin apartment late one night, laptop glowing, crunching numbers that made my stomach twist. My retirement savings, 10 years of careful contributions, and a chunk of my investment portfolio stared back at me. $183,000, almost to the penny. It was a fortune, my safety net, the cushion I'd built for a future I could count on. But Savannah's voice echoed in my head. You're the only one who can fix this. And I pictured her parents losing that house, her family unraveling. I told myself it was temporary. I'd get it back. I was doing this for us. The next day I called my financial advisor. You sure about this, Ethan? He asked, his tone sharp with doubt. That's a hell of a hit. I brushed him off. It's an investment, I said, half convincing myself. Family stuff. He sighed but processed the withdrawals. Over the following week I liquidated stocks, drained my 401k, watched my accounts shrink. The money hit my bank in a lump sum and I wired it to a lawyer I'd hired to handle the debt and the house transfer. I wasn't stupid. I wanted it airtight. The Victorian's deed would be mine until Cliff and Lynn paid me back, a safeguard against the unease gnawing at me. We met at a notary's office in San Antonio to sign the papers. The place was sterile, white walls, cheap chairs, the hum of a dying AC unit. Cliff wore a faded blazer, Lynn a floral dress that hung loose on her frame. Savannah sat beside me, her hand resting on my knee. The lawyer walked us through it. $183,000 to clear their mortgage and back taxes. The title transferred to Ethan Reynolds, a repayment plan TBD. Cliff signed with a flourish, muttering, "You're a lifesaver, son." Lynn dabbed her eyes, her voice quivering. "God bless you, Ethan. We'll never forget this." Savannah leaned in, her lips brushing my ear. "I'm so proud of you." I felt it then. A rush of pride, relief, even love. The weight of their gratitude, staged or not, landed hard. I'd saved them. The house was theirs to live in, but legally mine, a fact I clung to like a lifeline. Driving back to Austin, Savannah turned up the radio, singing off-key to some pop song, and I let myself believe it was worth it. She was happy. We were solid. This was what you did for the people you loved. Sacrificed, stepped up, built something together. Back home, though, the reality settled in. My bank balance was a shadow of itself. I'd gone from secure to exposed in a matter of days, and the repayment plan was vague. Cliff's "we'll figure it out" didn't inspire confidence. I pushed the worry down, focusing on Savannah. She cooked dinner that night, a rare steak and potatoes, and we ate on my couch, her feet in my lap. "They're safe because of you," I smiled, but something flickered. A question I couldn't voice. How long would it take to rebuild what I'd given up? Would they ever pay me back? Weeks passed, and the gratitude kept coming. Cliff called to thank me again, his voice booming through the phone. "You're family now, Ethan." Lynn sent a fruit basket with a card that read, "Our hero." Savannah framed a photo of us outside the Victorian, hanging it in my living room. It all felt good. Too good, maybe. I'd handed over my financial future, tied it to a house I didn't even want, and told myself it was noble. I didn't see the cracks forming, didn't hear the clock ticking. I thought I was the one holding the reins. I'd learned soon enough how wrong I was. It was a Friday night, 6 months after I'd signed over the money and the deed, when everything unraveled. Savannah had suggested dinner with her parents, something low-key to check in. I agreed, thinking it'd be a quiet evening, maybe some updates on their finances, a thank you that didn't come with a fruit basket. We drove to San Antonio in near silence, her hand resting on mine, but her gaze fixed out the window. I should have noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way she chewed her lip, but I was too busy rehearsing how I'd ask about the repayment plan. It had been too long without a real conversation about it. The Victorian smelled of roast chicken when we arrived, a rare effort from Lynn. The dining room was dim, lit by a single chandelier with half its bulbs burned out. Cliff sat at the head of the table, pouring wine with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Lynn fussed over plates, her hands trembling as she set them down. Savannah took the seat beside me, her knee brushing mine under the table. We ate mostly in quiet, the clink of forks loud against the awkward small talk. Weather, a car Cliff was fixing up, my latest project at work. It felt staged, like they were all waiting for something. Then it came. Savannah set her fork down, folded her hands, and looked at me with a calm that chilled me. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady, "I need to tell you something." The room went still. Cliff leaned back, sipping his wine. Lynn stared at her plate. "I've been seeing someone else," Savannah continued, like she was reading a weather report. "Lucas. It's a trainer at my gym. It's been a few months now and I'm in love with him." My chest tightened, the air sucked out of me. I opened my mouth but nothing came. She kept going. "I think it's best if you pack your things and leave the house. It's ours, mine, and my parents', and we need the space." Her words hit like a slap, sharp and cold. "Leave the house? The one I'd paid for?" I glanced at Cliff and Lynn. Cliff's lips twitched, a smirk he couldn't hide. Lynn's eyes flicked up, wet but smug. "You're serious?" I finally managed, my voice hoarse. Savannah nodded, unfazed. "I am. Lucas and I are moving forward. You should go tonight." Cliff cleared his throat, leaning in. No hard feelings, son. These things happen. Lynn reached for Savannah's hand, cooing, "She's happy now, Ethan. That's what matters. Happy." The word burned. They sat there, a united front, rewriting the story like I'd never existed. I stared at Savannah, the woman I'd loved, the one I'd gutted my savings for, and saw a stranger. Her green eyes were flat, no trace of the warmth I'd fallen for. The room spun, anger, shock, humiliation crashing together. I'd been played, not just by her but by all of them. The house, the debt, the tears. It was a con, and I'd walked right into it. They thought they'd won, thought I'd hit the plate my legs. They didn't know what I was holding on to. I pushed my chair back, the scrape loud against the hardwood. "Okay," I said, my voice low, steadying myself. Savannah frowned, like she'd expected more fight. Cliff raised an eyebrow. Lynn sniffled, performative as ever. I stood, meeting their eyes one by one, letting the silence stretch. They had no idea what was coming. Neither did I, not fully, not until I opened my mouth again, but I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not yet. The air in that dining room felt like it was pressing down on me, thick with their smug certainty. Savannah's words, "Pack your things and leave," looped in my head, each syllable a fresh cut. Cliff's half smirk, Lynn's crocodile tears, Savannah's cool detachment. They thought they had me cornered, that I'd just nod and walk out of their lives, leaving the house I'd paid for in their hands. I stood there, hands clenched at my sides, letting the shock settle into something harder, something sharper. They'd underestimated me. I pulled my phone from my pocket, slow and deliberate, my eyes locked on Savannah's. She tilted her head, a flicker of confusion breaking her calm. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice edged with impatience. I didn't answer right away. I scrolled to the scanned document I'd kept on my cloud drive. The contract, the deed transfer, every legal detail spelled out in black and white. My lifeline. I turned the screen toward them, holding it steady. "Here's the thing," I said, my voice low but firm, cutting through the tension. "This house, it's not yours. It's mine. Legally, fully, in my name. I paid off your debt, $183,000 of my money, and the deed transferred to me. You signed it, Cliff. You too, Lynn. It's all right here." I tapped the screen, zooming in on their signatures. The notary's stamp, the date. "You don't get to kick me out of my own property." The room froze. Savannah's mouth parted, her composure cracking. Cliff's smirk vanished, replaced by a flush creeping up his neck. Lynn let out a small choked gasp, her tissue dropping to the table. "What?" Savannah said, sharp and disbelieving. She grabbed the phone, scrolling through the document like she could rewrite it with her glare. "This can't— You can't—" "I do," I cut in. "I own this house. Not you, not your parents, me. And if anyone's leaving, it's you three, by midnight." I straightened, feeling the weight shift, the power tipping back into my hands. They'd played me for months, but I wasn't the pushover they'd banked on. Cliff shot to his feet, his chair scraping back. "Now hold on, son. This is our home. You can't just—" He stopped, floundering, his salesman charm useless against cold facts. "We'll work something out," he said, softer now, wheedling. "No need to get hasty. Let's talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "You took my money, you let me think we were family, and then you pull this— You're done here. Pack up and go." My voice stayed steady, but inside, adrenaline surged. Anger and triumph warring it out. Savannah stared at me, her face pale, then turned to her parents. "Dad, you told me it was ours." Cliff sputtered. "I thought— We figured—" He trailed off, no excuses left. Lynn started sobbing, loud and messy, clutching Savannah's arm. "Ethan, please. You can't do this to us after everything." Her wails grated, but I didn't flinch. I'd heard it all before, the guilt trips, the tears. This time, they bounced off me. Savannah stood, stepping closer, her eyes narrowing. "You're really going to throw us out? Over a piece of paper?" Her tone was venomous, but I saw the panic underneath. She'd gambled on me folding, on my love for her blinding me. She'd lost. "It's not just paper," I said. "It's my life you tried to take. Midnight. That's your deadline." I pocketed my phone and crossed my arms, watching them unravel. Cliff muttered curses, Lynn wailed louder, and Savannah glared like she could will me to break. But I didn't. For the first time in months, I felt solid, like I'd finally stopped falling and hit the ground running. They'd pushed me too far, and now they'd pay the price. The clock on the Victorian's mantel ticked past 9 p.m., each second a hammer strike in the chaos that followed my ultimatum. Cliff paced the dining room, his face red, muttering about lawyers and muttering into a throw pillow, her cries rising into a throw pillow, her cries rising and falling like a siren. Savannah stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out into the dark as if answers might materialize in the yard. I stayed rooted by the table, arms folded, watching them scramble. They'd spent months pulling strings, now they were tangled in them. Lynn was the first to pivot. She lurched toward me, her mascara-streaked face a mess of desperation. "Ethan, please," she begged, grabbing my arm. "You're breaking my heart. This house, it's my whole life. You can't take it from us." Her voice cracked, but her grip was firm, nails digging in. I pulled away, stepping back. "You took from me first," I said, keeping my tone flat. "This isn't a negotiation." She switched tactics, collapsing back onto the couch with a wail. "You're cruel. I thought you loved us, loved Savannah. How can you do this?" The guilt trip was textbook, but I'd built up immunity. I didn't respond, just let her words hang there, hollow. Cliff jumped in next, his salesman mask back on. "Look, son, let's be reasonable. We can pay you back, little by little. Just give us time. You don't want this on your conscience." His eyes darted, searching for a crack in my resolve. There wasn't one. "Time's up," I said. "You've got till midnight, that's it." I glanced at my watch. 9:47. 2 hours left. Savannah finally turned from the window, her face a storm of fury and fear. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she snapped. "Making us beg? You're not the man I thought you were." Her words stung, but only for a second. "And you're not who I thought you were either. Guess we're even." The next hour was a blur of manipulation. Lynn tried tears again, then silence, staring at me like a wounded animal. Cliff hauled out a suitcase from upstairs, slamming drawers, grumbling about ungrateful kids. Savannah disappeared into the kitchen, then came back with a glass of water she didn't drink, her hands shaking. At 10:30, she cornered me by the stairs. "Ethan," she said, softer now, her voice trembling. "I messed up, I know that. Lucas, he's nothing. Can't we just start over?" She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "No," I said, simple and final. "You don't get to rewrite this." Her face hardened, the mask slipping back on. "Fine, you'll regret this." She stormed off, joining her parents in a frantic packing spree. Boxes appeared, clothes spilled across the floor, and the house filled with the sound of their defeat, curses, sobs, the clatter of junk they couldn't take. By 11:55, they were done. Cliff and Lynn stood on the porch, suitcases at their feet, a beat-up sedan idling in the driveway. Lynn clutched a framed photo of Savannah as a kid, whimpering. Cliff glared at me, spitting. "This ain't over." I didn't blink. "It is for me." Savannah was last, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She paused at the door, looking back. "I did love you, you know." I didn't answer. She walked out, the screen door banging shut behind her. At midnight, the car pulled away, taillights fading into the San Antonio night. The house was mine again, silent, empty, and finally free of them. I locked the door, leaned against it, and let out a breath I'd been holding for months. This wasn't just about reclaiming a building. It was about taking back my spine, my choices, my life. They were gone, and I was still standing. That was enough for now. Flipping 208. Rebuilding life. The first morning after they left, the Victorian felt like a stranger's house. Too big, too quiet, echoes bouncing off the walls where their voices used to be. I stood in the kitchen, coffee brewing, staring at the mess they'd left. A half-empty fridge, a sink full of dishes, a calendar pinned to the wall with Lynn's shaky handwriting. I could have walked away, sold the place, and washed my hands of it. But something stubborn in me refused. This was mine, legally sure, but I needed to make it mine in a way they couldn't touch. So I stayed. I started small. That weekend I called a locksmith to change every lock, front door, back, even the rusty gate out back. The click of new keys in my hand felt like a fresh start, a line drawn. Then I tackled the inside. I ripped down the photo Savannah had framed, tossed it in a box with Cliff's car magazines and Lynn's tacky knickknacks. The living room got a coat of paint, soft gray, not their faded beige, and I hauled their sagging couch to the curb, replacing it with a leather one I found on sale. Each change was a cut, severing their hold on the space. Friends came next. I'd let my world shrink around Savannah, but now, I opened the doors again. My buddy Mark showed up with beers and a toolbox, helping me sand down an old dining table I'd salvaged. "Man, this place is yours now," he said, grinning as sawdust flew. My brother Jake brought his daughter Ellie over one Sunday. She ran through the empty rooms, giggling, while Jake and I sat on the porch, talking for the first time in years. "You're tougher than I thought," he said, clapping my shoulder. I smirked. Had to be. I needed more than walls to rebuild, though. I'd always been a work-sleep-repert guy, but now I had time, too much of it. So I tried gardening. The backyard was a tangle of weeds, but I bought a shovel, some seeds, and started digging. Tomatoes, basil, a row of sunflowers, nothing fancy, just something to grow. My hands blistered, my back ached, but watching green sheets break through the dirt felt like winning. Then I picked up woodworking. A guy at the hardware store sold me a cheap lathe, and I spent nights in the garage turning scrap into lopsided bowls and wobbly shelves. They weren't perfect, but they were mine. The house changed with me. I hung a cedar bookshelf I'd built, filled it with novels I'd never had time to read. The kitchen got new tiles, blue because I liked them, not because anyone told me to. I strung lights across the porch, sat out there with a beer some nights, listening to crickets instead of Lynn's whining. It wasn't just a house anymore, it was a space I'd claimed, piece by piece, from the wreckage they'd left. Months in, I realized something. Peace wasn't loud or flashy. It wasn't Savannah's laugh or Cliff's backslap or Lynn's tears. It was this: quiet evenings, dirt under my nails, a brother I'd found again, a life I'd built without lies holding it up. I'd lost a fortune, a future I'd banked on, but I'd gained something better. Trust in myself, clarity, the kind of calm that comes when you stop chasing someone else's version of happy. I wasn't done healing, not yet. The scars were there, in the way I flinched at sudden calls or double-checked my bank statements. But I was moving, not stuck. The Victorian stood taller now, its paint fresh, its bones mined to shape. And me? I was stronger too. Not the Ethan who'd signed away his savings for love, but a man who knew what he could lose, and what he could build back. That was enough to keep going. Final encounter. It was a crisp Saturday morning, 8 weeks after the eviction, when Savannah showed up again. I was in the front yard, knee-deep in a flower bed, tugging weeds from the soil I'd spent months coaxing back to life. The sun was just climbing, casting long shadows across the freshly painted Victorian, when I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel drive. I looked up, wiping sweat from my brow, and there she was, stepping out of a beat-up Honda, a bouquet of daisies in her hands, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked smaller somehow, less sure, her designer blazer swapped for a worn sweater. I stood, brushing dirt off my jeans, my pulse kicking up despite myself. She walked toward me, her steps hesitant, a faint smile flickering on her lips. "Hey, Ethan," she said, stopping a few feet away. Her voice was softer than I remembered, stripped of its old confidence. I wasn't sure you'd still be here." I didn't respond right away, just studied her. The flowers, the nervous way she shifted her weight. "What do you want, Savannah?" I finally asked, keeping my tone even. She held out the daisies, a peace offering I didn't reach for. "I wanted to see you, to talk." She swallowed, glancing at the house behind me, the new shutters, the porch light, the life I'd carved out. "It looks good. Different." I nodded, waiting. She took a breath, then let it spill. "Lucas dumped me, a few weeks ago, said I was too much drama, and Mom and Dad, they're barely scraping by, crashing with some cousin in Houston. Everything's a mess, and I messed up, Ethan, with you. I know that now." Her eyes met mine, shimmering with tears, and for a split second I saw the woman I'd fallen for. Vulnerable, but it didn't hit like it used to. I crossed my arms, leaning against the shovel I'd planted in the dirt. "Okay," I said, simple, waiting for the rest. She stepped closer, the dangers trembling in her grip. "I'm sorry, I was stupid, selfish. I thought Lucas was what I wanted. But losing you, losing this..." She gestured at the house, her voice breaking. "I miss you. I miss us. Can't we try again?" The words hung there, heavy, and I let them sit. Part of me, the old Ethan, might have seen a chance to fix what broke. But that guy was gone, buried under months of lies and betrayal. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the play. The flowers, the timing, the sob story. She wasn't here for me. She was here because her other options had run dry. "No," I said, firm but calm. "We're done, Savannah. You made your choice." Her face crumpled, the tears spilling now. "Ethan, please. I'll do anything. I know I hurt you, but I've changed, I swear." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back out of reach. "You didn't change," I said. "You just lost. Lucas, your parents' cushy setup, none of it worked out, so you're back here. That's not regret. That's desperation." Her mouth opened, then closed, her argument dying before it started. She stood there, deflated, the daisies drooping in her hand. "You really hate me, don't you?" she whispered. I shook my head. "I don't hate you. I just don't need you, not anymore." That hit her harder than anger would have. She stared at me, searching for a crack, but there wasn't one. I didn't need her apology, her tears, her closure. I'd already found mine, in the dirt, the paint, the quiet I'd built. Finally, she turned, walking back to her car without another word. The engine sputtered to life and she drove off, the daisies left crumpled on the gravel. I watched her go, feeling unlucky. No ache, no second guessing. Just the sun on my back and the weeds still waiting. I picked up the shovel, got back to work and realized I'd been free of her for longer than I'd thought. This was my life now, and she didn't belong in it. I sit on the porch now, a year after it all started, a cold beer in my hand and the San Antonio dusk settling around me. The Victorian glows softly behind me. New paint, new lights, a home I've made my own. The betrayal still lingers, a faint scar beneath the surface. But it doesn't rule me anymore. It's a story I tell myself sometimes. Not to dwell, but to measure how far I've come. Savannah, Cliff, Lynn, they took a lot. $183,000, my trust, a chunk of my heart. But they didn't take everything. I'm still here, standing taller than I did before they walked into my life. Looking back, I see the lessons carved into every step of this mess. Contracts matter. Legal ones, sure, like the deed that saved me, but emotional ones too. The unspoken promises we make to ourselves and others, the boundaries we draw, the trust we give or withhold, they're the framework of a life. I broke mine, let them blur under Savannah's smile and her parents' crocodile tears, and paid the price. Now I guard them fiercely, not out of bitterness but clarity. I know what I'm worth, what I won't bend for again. I've started writing about it, a blog, nothing fancy, just a space to unpack what happened and why. How to spot the traps you don't see coming, I called the first post, half joking, half serious. It's raw, messy, my voice spilling out over the keys, the red flags I missed, the guilt trips I fell for, the slow rebuild after. People read it, strangers mostly, some friends, and the comments roll in. This happened to me too, thank you for this. How do you move on? I don't have all the answers, but I give what I've got. If it helps one person dodge the pit I fell into, that's enough. The house is finished now, or as finished as a place like this ever gets. The garden's thriving, tomatoes ripening, sunflowers nodding in the breeze, and the garage smells of sawdust from my latest project, a rocking chair I'm sanding down for Jake's porch. Ellie calls it Uncle Ethan's castle when she visits, her laughter bouncing off the walls. Mark swings by with takeout some nights, and we talk code. This life isn't loud or perfect, but it's mine, built from the ground up, no one else's script. Tomorrow, I'm leaving for a trip, first one in years, a week in Colorado, just me, a backpack, and mountains I've never seen. I booked it on a whim, craving the space to breathe, to let the past settle into something smaller than it's been. The blog's queued up with posts. The plants are watered, the keys handed off to Jake. It's not an escape, it's a step forward, a chapter closing so another can start. I don't know what's next, not exactly, but I'm not afraid of it anymore. I take a last sip of beer, the bottle cool against my lips, and watch the stars prick through the sky. Betrayal broke me open, but it didn't end me. It showed me what I could lose, what I could fight for, what I could build. I'm not the man who walked into that networking event 3 years ago, naive and eager, nor the one who stood in this house a year back reeling from Savannah's confession. I'm someone new, scarred, sure, but steady. The future's wide open, and for the first time in a long time, I'm ready to meet it.